It is October 13th, 2012, and I just finished reading this book, Sensei, by John Donahue. I wanted to record a few thoughts as my third book review for the FMK blog. And part of what I'm doing with my book reviews, I have an objective to meet of reading 100 martial arts related books. And part of what I'm striving to do is kind of get a grasp on martial arts fiction as an aspect of this challenge of reading 100 books. So this is the second fiction novel that I've read as part of this challenge, and I'm familiar with John Donahue from his academic writing in JAMA, or the Journal of Asian Martial Arts. And he's an anthropologist who did his dissertation work on Japanese martial arts. So I applaud him for stepping into the art of fiction. And, this is something that I'm interested in, is how are people, smart people and experienced people using their martial arts knowledge and their imaginings and the art of fiction. So this is part of why I'm doing my fiction, is probably half of the books that I'm going to review, if I can find that many fiction books about the martial arts. I don't even know. But any case, yeah. So this is the second one, and this is a suspense thriller. So that's a bit different. And it's kind of a contemporary type suspense thriller with the cops and the big city and all of this. And basically, the main character is Connor Burke, and Connor Burke is an academic, and his brother is a cop, and he's been training for a long time. He's kind of the principal student at this very reclusive dojo with this sensei who is very renowned. And there's going to be an exhibit of martial arts weapons in the city, and this is in New York. And something happens, and a very famous sensei, not the one that Connor Burke is training under, but another famous sensei, is killed while perhaps guarding the weapons. And then it's linked to other murders that are going on in the United States with highly trained martial artists. And always there's this kind of graffiti left over, a tag that says Ronin. And so it's the classic kind of masterless samurai guy who's going around and he's challenging these very renowned teachers and killing them. And the reason he's doing this is because of revenge. As it turns out, the bad guy is doing this because he was a student of the sensei, who's Connor Burke's sensei, and was involved in this group, and was kicked out, basically. And so because he was kicked out of this group, he is now going back and kind of taking revenge on all the men who were in charge, who kicked him out, and he feels unjustly. And he's a great martial artist and all of this. So he's going around challenging them formally and killing them. And so this sets up the plot for the suspense for the story and all of this. And then you have the interaction between Connor Burke and his sensei. You have the interaction between him and his brother, the cop, his brother's partner, and so on, as they try to chase down this killer, and it leads ultimately up to a big fight scene at the end. The fight scene is very well done, except going into it, there was kind of for me a crucial flaw, and I found similar flaws throughout the book. I mean, I read the book. It took me 3 or 4 weeks to read it, where it should have taken me a week to read it. And the reason it took me a little bit longer, or a lot longer, was because I had to kind of push myself through the book, because I wanted to invest myself in the story, but the writing just wasn't perfected enough. And I don't know if it's going to be different in his other books, in Donahue's other fiction books, because he has taken this character, Connor Burke, and created kind of a series of martial arts books through this character. I don't know if I'll read any more of them right now. I'm not going to go right into one right away. So that says something right there. I'm going to wait, and perhaps I'll go back and read another one and see if the writing has improved. Basically, all the way through there was these little kind of tricks of the prose that, to me, either were absent that should have been there, or something was put in there that shouldn't have. In the final fight scene, what happens is, just as things are really getting tense, just as that you're gonna go and meet the bad guy, then the main character, who's kind of first person present tense narrating this thing, starts talking about how at one point his memory of the whole thing becomes hazy, and then it shifts into this past tense, for a few paragraphs that just, it didn't need to be there, and because it was there, it told you, that he's going to survive the encounter, even though, I mean, you assume he's going to survive the encounter in a sense, because there's a whole series of books about this character, but all the same, right when you're just you're just caught up in the suspense part of the whole thing, then you lose a piece of that suspense, because the final outcome is already, in a sense, determined. The character doesn't get killed, and it's pushed in your face by this little writing gimmick of the hazy memory thing for a couple of paragraphs before it gets exciting again. So anyway, it was stuff like that throughout the book, and especially one of the parts that I couldn't really get into was the dialogue between the cops and the others, because it just seems so stereotyping in a sense. So and I didn't buy it. I just didn't buy into the dialogue. That it just wasn't real enough. It wasn't, there's that suspension of disbelief. It just wasn't there. So I'm not gonna recommend the book on the merits of its writing. I will say though that it is, if it wasn't, it wasn't terrible. I could get through it. If it was really terrible, I would have put it down. I could get through it, and I didn't grow through reading the book or anything like that. But in this case, it's a suspense thriller, so perhaps I wasn't supposed to. And if you're trying to get a grasp on contemporary martial arts fiction, well, this was, published in 2003, so it's within the last decade, and there's a whole series of them, so it's kind of probably essential for anybody that's trying to survey contemporary martial arts fiction to touch on. But other than that, I'm not highly recommending it. I do commend Donahue for experimenting in fiction, and I'm not saying that I'm not going to read any more of the Connor Burke series. I am curious to see if the writing gets better, but that's my review.